Welcome back to the Profit Playbook DFS. My name is Jaime Hernandez, and if you enjoy the feedback and the information that I'm giving out to you, if you can do me the biggest favor to please like, share, subscribe, and leave a comment down there, please. That would help me out a lot, and I appreciate you. If not, regardless, I still appreciate your views. Okay. Today we're talking about Week 6. DraftKings main slate breakdown. I'm breaking down that main slate. Last week, double ups, right? Cash games. It was pretty good with that Seattle game, Seattle Tampa Bay game. On the GPP side, I had Justin Herbert, right? It wasn't the greatest there, but it is what it is. It's on to a new week, and let's go ahead and get started with the quarterbacks. This week, Lamar Jackson is still out. We have Josh Allen as the most expensive, but one of my plays is going to be Baker Mayfield versus San Francisco. Yes, San Francisco is depleted both offensively and defensively, but that doesn't matter because San Francisco is throwing the ball 40 times a game, right? And we love that. We love that. And that's what we want, and that helps out Baker Mayfield. With Baker Mayfield, I truly believe it's going to be a high-scoring game here. Yes, he is missing some of his targets, just like he was last week, right? With Mike Evans out. Regardless, whether Baker Mayfield has, nothing but backups, he's going to be airing it out there. It also helps that Bucky Irving is out as well. But of course, he's not just playing with some backups. He does have Emeka Egbuka at wide receiver, looking like a legit WR1, not just in fantasy, but in real life football as well. Baker Mayfield, we love as a stud here. And my second is going to be Dak Prescott. If you've been tuning in, I love Dak Prescott. I've been mentioning him a lot. And of course, whoever's playing against him as well, right? Dallas Cowboy football games have been high scoring, and we love that for fantasy purposes. And, we're going back to it here with Dak Prescott. As you can tell right here, yes, versus Philadelphia, 7.8. I mean, what's his name? Carter. He got suspended before the game, and even Dallas after the game said, hey, the game script changed, we didn't want to run it down the middle, but after losing their defensive tackle in the first play of the game, they legit just ran it down the middle. They ran the ball like crazy. And so Dak Prescott, didn't get to throw the ball a lot. But anyways, it is what it is. Versus the Giants, he went off there. Versus Chicago, I gave him as a play, but 14 points. We did give Caleb Williams as my favorite play of that game, though he went off. And then versus Green Bay, that was a crazy game, a tie game in overtime. He went off. And then versus the Jets, of course, he went off. I'm expecting another game like that here in Carolina. I expect Carolina's offense to put up points as well. So Dak Prescott, he's my number 2 quarterback there. And with my number 3, going back to him and back-to-back weeks, is Justin Herbert. Yes, when it comes to Herbert, he started off pretty hot, and then he's fading fast, right? But I feel like there's no choice but to throw the ball here versus Miami. Miami is one of the worst teams defending the pass, and now with Herbert losing Amar and Hampton, he's he was placed on IR. There's no running back that will fill that role that Hampton carried. And I believe Justin Herbert is going to throw the ball a ton, especially versus that bad secondary Miami defense. I expect fireworks from Herbert here at 6,300. I'm definitely going to have Herbert again. And versus this Miami defense, I expect at least 22 to 30 fantasy points from Herbert here. Let's see here. So that's Baker Mayfield, Dak Prescott, and Herbert up in the stud range, I would say. And now let me give you 3 value plays. We're going to go back to him again this week. Let's see, where is he at? Where's Sam Darnold? Anyway, it's Sam Darnold. We're going to go back to him. Sam Darnold, Seattle, right? Had him a ton last week, and he went off 31.6 fantasy points, 5,100. The price tag barely moved, about $300 up. And this game versus Jacksonville has potential for a shootout, and that's what we love, right? We love games that have potential for shootouts, especially versus Jacksonville. That defense versus the pass is not the greatest, and that is why I love Sam Darnold on back-to-back weeks at 5,400. He's one of my value plays of the slate. After Sam Darnold, we go opposite side that game with Trevor Lawrence. One thing, when Seattle scores points, their defense also bleeds points to the opposing quarterback and the offense in general. And we saw what Trevor Lawrence was able to do versus Kansas City. I believe Kansas City defense is a little bit better than Seattle's defense. But if Sam Darnold, can keep scoring, then also that's going to force Trevor Lawrence, getting a back and forth with him. Trevor Lawrence at his price tag 5,100. I love, of course, he doesn't have to do as much, right, as the studs that I mentioned. But regardless, I do believe he gets up into the late teens, up to the 20 fantasy points here versus Seattle. And last but not least, we are going to the value play of the slate, and that is Bryce Young. At 4,800, same thing. He doesn't have to do much for you. But at this price tag versus the Dallas defense, Bryce Young might be a slate breaker in those GPPs. And once again, I've been targeting Dallas defense, and it's been paying dividends. And I expect nothing less here versus Bryce Young. And we've seen flashes of Bryce Young that he can go off, put up 25 plus fantasy points, 30 fantasy points, and this is not anything different versus this Cowboys defense. This is a get-right game for Bryce Young, and at 4,800, my value play of the slate at quarterback. Once again, quarterbacks, we have Baker Mayfield, Dak Prescott, Justin Herbert, Sam Darnold, Trevor Lawrence, and Bryce Young. And with that, we go to our running backs. We're going all the way up to the top with Jonathan Taylor versus Arizona. When it comes to Jonathan Taylor, we've seen that he's matchup proof. Doesn't matter who's he going up against. This week he's going up against Arizona. They're favorites. If Indy can get somewhat of a lead early on, and it's going to be more favorable for him. But we've seen that even when trailing, right, like you can see in that Denver game, he's still got all the carries in the world, and he's also been valuable in the pass game as well. Jonathan Taylor at 8,500 with that crazy huge workload that he's our stud of the slate at running back. Talking about, speaking about studs, we're going with Bijan Robinson versus the Buffalo Bills. If the Buffalo Bills can get up early on Atlanta, then we're golden with Bijan Robinson, right? And the reason being, I know with running backs is if you can get a huge lead, right, that's golden for running backs. But when it comes to Bijan, the closer the game is, or if they're trailing, he's going to be in the game. Whenever they're blowing someone out, they normally try to get Tyler involved in the run game with double-digit run attempts, right? But with Bijan, hopefully Buffalo is angry that they just lost to the Patriots and come in, firing at all cylinders. That would help out Robinson a lot. And I truly believe that will happen. Buffalo's going to come out firing at all cylinders. And for that, I do love Bijan Robinson, especially on the receiving department there. Bijan Robinson, Jonathan Taylor. And then last but not least, Achane versus the Chargers. I love this spot for him, right? The Chargers, they're ranked 7th. That doesn't matter when it comes to pass catching backs. they bleed points, right? And Achane, as you can tell there, he's a PPR monster, and that's what we're expecting from him. And at least a touchdown with his receptions. I believe he gets minimum like 6 receptions there. And if they get up early on the Chargers, then he can be a slate breaker as well. So those are my 3 studs: Jonathan Taylor, Bijan Robinson, and Achane. Now for the values here. We're going with Rico Dowdle, right? He had a workhorse workload there last game, and he's starting again, and we expect him to keep much of the same versus a bad Dallas Cowboys defense. He should go off, right? He should go off, even if the Panthers get blown out. But I don't see Dallas blowing anyone out, So Rico Dowdle, I love him. I love him as a value play this week. I'm gonna go to him. Tony Pollard. Yes, he hasn't been doing much. He has had a workhorse load there, right? And it's a perfect game. Whenever you're struggling like that overall as a team. Tennessee just won their first game. They might be the worst team in football, but they did just win the first game. And hopefully, everything's everyone's feeling good there. But with Tony Pollard, I do believe this is a get-right game versus the Las Vegas Raiders. And at 5,500, he gets you into the late teens. That's good, and I truly believe he will. He might even break into the 20s at fantasy points this week. Tony Pollard, second value at running back. And last but not least, even if Kamara plays, I truly believe he's going to be limited. There's chatter about him getting traded this year. And if they have any serious suitors, I'm sure they're going to limit his workload. They're not going to want him to get injured. If not, of course, he's not going to be worth much. And if that's the case, Kendre Miller should be getting more touches. And when it comes to New England, yes, they're a tough defense. But when it comes to, Kendre Miller, at his price at 4,700, he doesn't really have to do much. Maybe in 10 to 15 fantasy point range. And if he scores a touchdown on there, with 50, let's say, rushing yards and a couple of receptions, and you'll be golden. Kendre Miller, he's my last value play there at running back. And there we have the 6 running backs I recommended: Jonathan Taylor, Bijan Robinson, Devin Achane, Rico Dowdle, Tony Pollard, and Kendre Miller. My favorite play at running back this week is Bijan Robinson. You have it there. Now let's go to our wide receivers. We're going to go all the way to the top. Puka Nacua as our spend-up stud of the week, right? When it comes to Puka Nacua, as you can see there, he's a volume monster, right, with his targets. He's a volume monster, and his catch rate is pretty darn good, as you can tell there, right? No Larry Fitzgerald, but he's pretty darn good there. His consistency is elite versus this Baltimore defense. They're just bleeding points to wide receivers, especially WR1s. And that price tag is not going to scare me for Puka Nacua. He's proved that he can put up monster games there. Puka Nacua, he's our spend-up stud. And then after that, we have, let's see here. After that, we can go with, Emeka Egbuka. Right? He's a rookie, but everyone's injured, and he's been legit WR1 at 7,200, posting up numbers the last 2 weeks like Puka Nacua. You can see why I love him, right? His consistency and catch rate was amazing versus Seattle last week, right? And he's gonna get everything he can handle. Now I believe Let's see. So Mike Evans still out. Man, and then WR2's out as well. I forgot his name, man, and I've had him in fantasy for years. But anyways, Emeka Egbuka, he's definitely going to have a target share. Like, it's going to skyrocket this upcoming game versus San Francisco. And San Francisco, I truly believe it's going to be a back-and-forth game. You can definitely pair up Emeka Egbuka with... you can pair him up with Baker Mayfield there. And then you can go with George Pickens versus Carolina. You know, CeeDee Lamb has been out, so he's been getting definitely a lot of more targets, except last week versus the Jets. I don't know what happened there, but I believe that Dak Prescott is going to come back to George Pickens here in this game. At 6,800, I do believe he gets you into the 20-plus in fantasy points this week versus Carolina. I love George Pickens this week. And Ladd McConkey versus Miami. I love Ladd McConkey here, especially if Quentin Johnston is limited or out. Then, of course, if he's out, Ladd McConkey will rise up big time. At 5,500 last week, he got 15 fantasy points, basically. Looks like he's heating up, and why not? You know, everyone's going to be on Keenan Allen or Quentin Johnston. If they do target the Chargers receiving core, I'm going to be at Ladd McConkey there. He's heating up, and let's see, now with Martin Hampton. Martin Hampton was seeing about like 6 targets per game the last 2 games, so targets are going to have to go somewhere, and I believe Ladd McConkey is the man for that. Ladd McConkey, I loved. And also Marvin Harrison Jr. You know, the points he's been getting, 13.8, 18.6, those have been good for his price tag, right? 5,400, 5,300, they've been okay for his price tag. But we're looking for that ceiling game for Marvin Harrison Jr. Cash games, he's okay. But I truly believe versus the Colts, we see how the Colts offense has been with Daniel Jones, right? They've been on a tear. And if they can continue that, it's going to force Arizona to throw early and often. And that's definitely going to be great for Marvin Harrison Jr. I love Marvin Harrison Jr. this week. And last but not least, let's go all the way down to Jalen Tolbert, Dallas Cowboys. Where's he at? Jalen Tolbert here. He's it's crazy, right? Last week when it was a perfect game for him last week, and it looked like the whole Dallas receiving core was basically out of whack, right? I mean, I just saw with George Pickens, but this week, Jalen Tolbert, I do love versus the Carolina Panthers here. And at 3,500, doesn't have to do much for you. Under 10 fantasy points, you'll be okay. Between 7 and 10 fantasy points, you'll be fine there. Jalen Tolbert, I love as my value play of the slate. Don't be scared with that goose egg there in week 5. I truly believe that Dallas, Dak Prescott bounces back, you know, hitting his top targets there. Jalen Tolbert, I love this week. And last but not least, let's go to our tight ends. And we're going to go to Jake Ferguson back-to-back, right? Jake Ferguson, I mean, he went off last week, 23.9. We don't need him to score 23.9 every week at his price tag, but we would appreciate 12 fantasy points plus. And I believe here in this spot versus Carolina, he will get us there. I would say 15 fantasy points is what I'm expecting minimum as his floor here. Jake Ferguson, I love this week. And Tucker Kraft as well versus Cincinnati. They stink versus tight ends. That's, you know, it's not a secret there. And he's been getting a lot of value when needed. And with a depleted Green Bay wide receiver core there, Tucker Kraft should be handling most of the workload at wide receiver with Matthew Golden. being sprinkled in here and there. And Darren Waller, we loved him last week. We love him this week. There's some news that came out that his workload should increase, right? Which is crazy. He's been pretty good. His catches has been amazing. And if his workload increases, then this guy might, score 30 plus fantasy points. You never know, right? But Darren Waller, I love this week versus the Chargers. And that would really be it at tight end this week. But there you have it. There you have my quarterbacks, my running backs, my wide receivers, and tight ends. At defenses, you can maybe go to the Packers versus Cincinnati. It should be a blowout, I would say. And then also, I would say the Steelers versus Cleveland. They're going up versus Dylan Gabriel. It's a second start, but playing at Pittsburgh is a whole lot different than playing at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium in England, right? And that's really it. And if you want a defense that a low price defense, I would say you can go with let's see here. You can go and use the Cleveland defense, I would say. But that's really it. When it comes to this week, focus on. There's a lot of value, right? So you can definitely spend up for Jonathan Taylor, for Bijan Robinson, for Puka Nacua, for Egbuka, right? You can definitely spend up there. There's no need to spend up for quarterbacks. I feel like Josh Allen, there's no need to go all the way up there. But this is just what I'm thinking. These are my core studs and values here. But there you have it. Thank you so much if you stayed tuned all the way through. And if you did, please like, share, and subscribe. We'll see you next week. Have a great weekend. Bye-bye.